Hi, I'm Will Selva with breaking news out of Green Bay, and we now have clarity on the Aaron Rodgers situation. The heavens have opened up, and we now know what he is going to do. He's going to stay with the Packers. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport is reporting that Rodgers has agreed to terms on a 4-year, $200 million deal that makes him the highest paid player in NFL history. This according to Rap Sheet's sources. Speaking of Rap Sheet, he joins us right now. And Ian, we have been talking about this for weeks. Aaron Rodgers did say there was a deadline, at least until free agency or the franchise tag deadline. And here we are. It finally got done. Tell us all about it and how it finally came together.
Well, this was not an easy decision for Aaron Rodgers, something that he really weighed heavily for the last several months. There was some real options. Retirement was an option. Going to the Denver Broncos was an option as well. But in the end, thanks in part to so much of the work that the Green Bay Packers have done to make sure that Aaron Rodgers has been in the fold, appreciated, part of everything that they are doing, all of that. This is a lot of the reason why Aaron Rodgers ultimately decided earlier this morning to return to the Green Bay Packers, informing some friends and then informing the Packers. Pat McAfee officially broke the news a couple minutes ago. My understanding is that Rodgers has agreed to terms on a massive new extension for 4 years, $200 million in new money. So a long-term extension rather than a short-term deal. $153 million in guaranteed. The deal is front-loaded, so Rodgers gets a lot of it early, and it also lowers his cap number this year, which allows the Green Bay Packers to do a lot of the things they want to do in free agency, including keep Davante Adams as well.
For more perspective, we bring in our colleague, Tom Pelissero. And Tom, as Ian just detailed, we've been waiting for months to see what Aaron Rodgers would do. And now it seems that the Packers have a roadmap towards free agency and the draft.
And more importantly, Will, they now have the road seemingly paved for Aaron Rodgers to do something that he has spoken many times about wanting to be a goal in his career, which was to start and finish with one team in Green Bay. Now, you would certainly anticipate that Rodgers is going year to year at this point in his career. So when we get the final details on that contract extension that Ian reported for 4 years and $200 million, keep an eye on exactly the type of flexibility Rodgers might have to walk away at any point. But the relationships certainly have improved. You go back to last summer when Rodgers came back to the teams and delivered that extensive media conference on the first day of training camp in which he laid out all the issues, the reasons that he had decided at one point that he would tell the Packers, if you want to go to Jordan Love, you don't want to extend me, just trade me. To get from that point to where we are in the past several months here, where he was speaking effusively, not just about Coach Matt LaFleur and others on staff, but about the front office, about Mark Murphy, about General Manager Brian Gutekunst. All of that certainly seemed to point toward Rodgers returning to Green Bay. But as Ian mentioned, there were real possibilities on the table. In the end, it came down to Denver or Green Bay. Rodgers decided that he did want to keep playing. There were some other teams, including the Tennessee Titans, that showed various amounts of interest throughout the course of the process. But his old offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, now in Denver, there was some allure there. Ultimately, Rodgers decides he is going to head back to the Packers and compete for another Super Bowl in 2022.
Tom, you and Ian talked about the relationships, not just with the front office, but elsewhere. He certainly has a relationship with Davante Adams. There's been talk about whether he was going to be franchise tag. Ian, what can you tell us about how this affects Davante Adams and his situation?
Yeah, the Green Bay Packers have no interest in losing maybe the best receiver in the NFL. The expectation is, and really has been, that the Packers will franchise tag Davante Adams. That will also come today. And it's part of the reason why Rodgers really wanted to let the Packers know his decision, what he was going to do, whether he was coming back, whether he was retiring, whether he wanted to be traded, all of those things, so they could then proceed with keeping their other really good player, Davante Adams. So that should all happen today. It's obviously not what Davante Adams wants. It's a lot of times not what really any player wants. They've tried without success to get a long-term deal on Davante Adams. We'll see where that all stands, but I would expect them, Tom, to franchise tag Adams later today.
And that franchise tag, Ian, is worth in the range of $18 million for Davante Adams. His market in terms of free agency or doing an extension is going to be far higher than that. You go back to last summer when he was in contract talks with the Packers, there was really a difference of opinion there on whether the top of the wide receiver market was upwards of $27.5 million per year. The standard set on DeAndre Hopkins on a 2-year extension with the Cardinals as part of a trade when he still had 3 years left on his old contract. Teams look at that as a much lower number. Julio Jones is at $22 million a year. That's how the Packers and clubs would look at the top of the receiver market. So closing that gap is going to be something that's important here. We expect that there could be a couple other franchise tags used on wide receivers today. That's going to be a situation that's going to play out into the summer because Adams has made no bones about the fact that he does not want to play on the tag.
Yeah, and of course, that's a situation a lot of players are in, certainly a lot of receivers are in. It's going to be interesting to see how the Packers, including their now new sort of still quarterback Aaron Rodgers, reacts to that, because you know that Aaron Rodgers wants Davante Adams on this team. And from my understanding, Adams has been, I believe, in the loop on some of this with Rodgers as well, because he wants to run it back. And when Rodgers was doing his planning with Matt LaFleur following the season, having Davante Adams back was a really big deal, as it should be. The Packers also have some other cap-related things to do. Zadarius Smith has a huge cap number. Do they ultimately decide just to release him? I would say at this point I'd be surprised if they didn't. So that's another thing they got to do. Some business the Packers have to do now, but it all went back to Aaron Rodgers. Couldn't do anything until that was done, and now that's actually done.
Tom, how does this reset the quarterback market now with Aaron Rodgers' deal?
Well, Aaron Rodgers is the 2-time reigning NFL MVP, so it would be difficult for other players right now to argue to top that, though, of course, that's always kind of how this works. Every time the market gets reset, everybody else aims to reset it again. The previous high was Patrick Mahomes, who was at $45 million per year, though that's a unique deal, a 10-year extension that had incentives that could take it upwards of $500 million. Kind of tough to compare apples to apples on that versus a standard extension like the one that Rodgers set, but certainly that $40+ million range, 45 to 50, that's going to be the new spot. So if you're a Lamar Jackson, who of course has been a part of contract talks, whether you're a Justin Herbert that's going to be coming up in coming years, whether you're Kyler Murray, who has made absolutely no mistaking of the fact that he wants to be paid at the top of the quarterback market, those are now the new numbers that everyone's going to be staring at.
Lots of intrigue, guys, but at least that first big domino has fallen. Rap sheet. Tom, appreciate it. Of course, we'll have much more on this breaking news story at 1 p.m. Eastern Time right here on NFL Network, as Aaron Rodgers has agreed to terms on a 4-year deal worth $200 million. This, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport.